What would you do if you woke up one morning and the world that you inhabit starts to fall apart? If suddenly the landscape of your life shifts towards violence and you enter the jaws of hell, of terrorism and chaos, leaving the promised land of calm and order? At the outset, this isn't a story about terror. But when a day that champions resurrection becomes a vehicle for horror, terror provides a backdrop. It's a reflection that when chaos destroys certainty, principles are the only thing that you've got left. Let me bring you back. April the 20th, 2019, Easter Saturday. Like all good Catholics, I was in my other parish, the pub. Cheers Pub Colombo, to be exact, housed within the 5-star Cinnamon Grand Hotel. We've been in Sri Lanka for nearly 5 months, and after 10 years as a deputy improving schools in the southeast of the UK, I've been really fortunate to achieve a plum job as head of secondary at one of the top schools in Asia. My wife and our 3 children moved from the security of our home in Windsor to the other side of this golf ball we call Earth. Looking for an adventure, we got one. I don't know if you've ever experienced culture shock, but it comes in waves. The homesickness, cultural displacement, followed by a pining for Bovril and salt and vinegar crisps. We got our bearings, and on that Easter Saturday, we met our friends, watched some football on the big screens, watched our kids play, oblivious to the fact that around the time we arrived at the Cinnamon Grand, a gentleman named Mohammed Azam Mohammed, a Sri Lankan citizen with links to a militant group, was checking in upstairs with a suitcase full of explosives. We had more reason to celebrate than most. 3 days before, we found out my wife was pregnant with our 4th child, a new life for our new life. Breakfast is the biggest meal of the day in Sri Lanka. It's a real event. And high days and holidays, lots of people would go out for breakfast. Talk soon turned to returning to the hotel the next morning, and I reminded my family that I had a football match at 8 a.m., so we decided to go for lunch instead, a decision that almost certainly saved our lives. The following morning after football, I drove home with my 9-year-old son in the back of the car, and Colombo was quiet. Sounds not a big deal, but Colombo's never quiet, ever. And I turned the radio on, and news came through of another bombing, this time in Negombo, this time a church. The phrase catastrophic loss of life came across the airwaves. I stayed on long enough to get the gist of simultaneous detonations across Colombo and Negombo. And on our return home, sirens started to wail, and we saw smoke emanating from the Gore Road area, where we spent most of our time. I don't know if you've ever had one of those moments which you know is going to define the next phase of your life, but this was it. It's a cliche to say that leadership is lonely, but at 10 a.m. on the 21st of April 2019, it was like staring into the abyss, and all I could see was myself staring back at me. The whole thing felt transcendental, raw, and unreal. What came next was momentary paralysis. It's probably not momentary, it's probably about 15 minutes, actually. Paralysis in duress is a very real thing. The cognitive impact of crisis response is reduced working memory, anxiety, and fear. Not particularly useful when you're trying to make decisions about the future. Instinctively, I wanted to choose fight over flight, but I didn't know where to start. And by the time my wife interrupted me to show me of the horror of dismembered bodies being shared on WhatsApp groups, I realized there was no more time for stasis. We may have lost people, and it was time to get started. My family was shaken, but immediately safe. I've been a qualified head since 2014, but there's no MPQH unit on surviving terrorist attacks. Where did I start? Where would you start? Around 11 a.m., the government made this even more difficult by turning off all social media. This was an evolving situation. Something seismic was happening. It was going to affect me, my family, all of the people I worked with, and all of the children that I served. Like many of you, I'd read countless books on leadership. But at that moment, leadership ceased to be abstract. It became intrinsic and incredibly immediate. One of the most basic principles of leadership is stewardship. I needed to ensure that the people that I was looking after were safe. On reflection, when the world comes falling down, you've got 3 things: your principles, your instincts, and the people around you. We met as a leadership team, put a pin in the big stuff, and we decided to reach out to our community using the only method left to us, which was Microsoft Teams, sending out posts and asking our staff to like it and thumb it, and to cascade that through the school community to ensure that everybody was safe. And thus began the rapid development of an online learning community. In any organization, institutional progress is never linear, but paradoxically, development plans are. By year 2, we will be. In 3 months, we will have achieved. The plan adapts to bumps in the road, but in extremis, there's no opportunity to plan in that way. By 10 a.m., we'd had 8 explosions across Colombo and 1 in the Gumbo. In extremist leadership is not about making the right decisions. It can't be. Crisis is far too complex for right and wrong. There are just huge shades of grey, and the roadmap is never clear. We decided that the plan wasn't serving anybody. We would relinquish it, and we would start again. But as a senior leadership team, we'd established a vision for the school which was held around 3 core principles. Firstly, that students would be equipped with the values, attitudes, and attributes to allow them to exist successfully later in life. Secondly, everyone achieving the highest academic standards. And thirdly, the school continuing to deliver irrespective of changes in circumstances. In my previous life, improving schools in the UK, I worked with a number of failing institutions. One of the characteristics that they often had, which would transpose across industries and sectors, is that they didn't have a shared universal vision that everybody signed up to and understood. Each school sounded like the next. Their mission and vision usually revolved around a tripartite clause, words like inspire, believe, achieve, opportunity, aspiration, success, all worthy qualities for any school or any institution. The problem is, it wasn't part of the DNA of the institution itself. The people in those places weren't walking the talk, so those visions and those words became hollow and empty. They were almost at odds with the institutions that we were trying to improve. I remember as a deputy head teacher at a school in an improvement journey, I listened to the head teacher who'd spent quite a lot of the kids' money on a recruitment consultant, invite the consultant to our meeting, who asked us in a very sharp suit, if this school was a car, what car would it be? Crackers. In all strong institutions, the vision should be absolutely central to the purpose and the mission. It goes from the inside out, not the other way around. And the third part of our vision, delivering consistently regardless of changes in circumstances, was prophetic. It was right for our context. Whatever your vision as an institution, it's got to be right for you, not for the institution down the road, but for you. I was serving in a country that had a 38-year civil war. It was important we kept an eye on changes in circumstances and context. And that really helped us. It allowed us to strap ourselves to the mast and to come back to that constantly. If they found a pipe bomb at the airport, we're going to deliver regardless of changes in circumstances. The Foreign Office are advising against all but essential travel to Sri Lanka. We're going to deliver regardless of circumstances. The military are imposing a curfew. Does this represent force majeure? We're going to deliver regardless of changes in circumstances. Why? It's number 1 in our vision, the stewardship of young people. Establishing what Sinek would call the why becomes so central in that mission. Leadership's about absorbing anxiety, not amplifying it. Communicating calm became a key strategy in our new normal. Putting the needs of others before yourself is hard, but it's part of the job, as any parent will tell you. Any parent who's ever held children at an airport during a delay will know that you're always putting their needs in front of your own. They'll also know that the greatest human emotion is belonging. Belonging to a community, even an online one, helps grow alignments, helps people feel valued, helps people feel part of something. The government initially closed schools for 2 days, but it's always better to be at the vanguard than in the guard's van, so we moved our business online immediately. That doesn't sound like much in a post-COVID world when we're all used to this, but 7 years ago, that was quite a big step. This had much more to do with maintaining our culture, our values, our ethos, and our vision than it did with teaching and learning. We recognised that in chaos, there were certain big things that we couldn't control. But what we could do is communicate belonging and a stable environment for students to access and against the hubris of chaos. Nothing we did in the aftermath of the bombings was perfect. It was impromptu, dynamic, and adaptive. We were arguably the best school in the country, but there we were not aiming for perfection, but just aiming to give presence. If you ever find yourself leading through chaos, it's essential you communicate cogently, linking whatever you're communicating to your values and your purpose. I remember that first day as I emerged after about 12 hours in my bedroom, still in my football kit, still on Teams, not featured a 45-minute period looking for a charger. The longest day of all days, as I came out and saw my wife and we looked over Colombo in darkness, but for the military setting a roadblock in the road just below us, I suddenly felt vulnerable. And there's a space for vulnerability in leadership, but it wasn't on this day or the day that followed. If the staff were going to follow me out of the aeroplane, so to speak, it was essential they trusted the person that was packing their parachute was in control. In the weeks that followed, the students gained access to the exams through the roadblocks, and we received the best A-levels and GCSE results we'd had in years, miraculously. The one thing everyone in this room has in common is that we're all living through uncertain times. We're not immune to changes in external circumstances. I've lived through other critical incidents. I've been in an incident involving a student holding Year 11 students in lockdown because there was a man on site with a knife. I've been at a school where the roof was falling down, so we had to move almost immediately. More significantly, though, I've experienced being the father to a daughter with a life-threatening heart condition. I'm currently the brother to a sister suffering from stage 4 liver and bowel cancer. I've been a father to 4 children, with all the wonder and chaos that comes with that. And I've spent a lifetime working in a changing sector. What I've learned from each of these events is that life is uncertain. Peace in our lives is fragile, always threatened by things out of our control, and the comfort and illusion of order is brittle. If you find yourself in a moment of personal, institutional, or social catastrophe, don't offer perfection. Take responsibility for the people you steward and meet them where they're at. Everybody responds to crisis differently. Communicate, whatever you're communicating, you've got to fill that void. And above all else, anchor your purpose and your principles and your vision, because they're the only things that remain fixed. During a catastrophic event, people don't follow status or titles or plans. They follow presence, calmness, and clarity. So show up, stand up, stay true to your core principles, and that way you'll deliver your people from the jaws of hell to the promised land. Thank you.